And I realized that it wasn't about food. Nothing was ever about food. It was about the feeling in the body that we weren't ever receiving the real nourishment that we needed in our lives.
Hey there, Vibers. Welcome to the Vibe with Kai podcast, where we keep it real, we keep it relatable, and we keep it a little bit funny as we dive into all things mental health, ADHD, and introversion. My name is Kai. I'm your host, and each week we're going to tackle life struggles with honesty, humor, and a whole lot of heart. So whether you're here for practical advice or a little validation or just a laugh about what life is like as an adult in today's world, listen, you are in the right place. We are not about toxic positivity here. We are all about being genuine to each other and to ourselves. And we're talking about real things. And we want to encourage each other and remind you that you are not alone. With that said, my friends, sit back, relax, and let's vibe through this together and enjoy today's episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast.
What up, Vibers? It's your boy, Kai. Welcome to another episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. In today's episode, we're diving into something we all need more of. Nourishment. And no, I'm not talking about food. We're talking about nourishment for your whole life, your mind, your energy, your relationships, and yes, even the way that you talk to yourself. Because let's be real, self-care isn't just bubble baths and green smoothies. A lot deeper than that. Joining me today is someone who has dedicated their life to helping people activate their power and rewrite the way they nourish themselves. Isabel Chiara. Isabel Chiara is a life actualization coach and intuitive guide and the author of Eat Your Words and Odd Behavior. Isabel has spent over 30 years studying transformational energy, guiding people to step into their most empowered, self-nourishing lives. And guess what? Isabel's bringing all of her wisdom right here with us today. We're going to talk about how to break old habits, redefine what true nourishment looks like, and tap into the power you already have inside of you. With that said, I want to welcome our guest, Isabel Chiara. Hi, Isabel.
Hi, thanks, Kyle. What a great introduction. That was wonderful.
Oh, I tried my best. I need to make sure I hype you up, make sure people know that we have a special guest today, you know?
And you know what? Your energy is pretty hyper too. So.
I try my best. It's the tea. It's the caffeinated tea. That's all it is. And the ADHD meds, just a combination of both, just going at it. I want to jump right into this because I find this really fascinating. Your work revolves around the theme of nourishment. How did your journey lead you to this concept beyond just food and nourishment?
Well, first of all, I grew up in a family restaurant business and I stayed in it, never left it. So I don't know who's worked with their family, but there's always a little bit of emotional kind of...
Just a little bit.
Huh?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit of emotional.
But, I always said to myself, I'm going to stick with this, because it was I love the restaurant business. I love the people contact. So I always had it no matter what happened, and there were some rough points, I will admit. And I said, no, I can't leave. I never left. So that would have probably be the only thing I was committed to in my life. No,
right.
I'm committed to this path also. So having been part of a lot of this, I really needed something else when I was working in the family business. And what I found was my spirituality. And I figured that was the way to figure out more about myself. So for me, I thought leaving the body was a great way to go, right? Eat, leave the body, and then of course, like most people that are on that path, we have to lose weight. I've tried every diet, but the way I have done that is also the way I've done this path toward nourishment. But it was really a path toward healing. And I wanted to heal my inner soul because let's face it, when you're in a family business, people aren't apt to listen to you, to give you the floor and speak. There's like a chain of command.
Right.
And so I learned, we didn't learn to communicate, and there wasn't really room to communicate because we were busy and we just did the best we could. And there was really that fast-paced behavior all the time.
Right.
So it does work for me right now, that fast-paced behavior. It made me really be on the search for
Right.
something really vile for me to live my life by. But anyways, I started studying Reiki and started studying with shamans and healers, and that really was so passionate for me, more than talking about food, because that became very passionate for me. But speaking and learning and being in that energy felt really light and energetic and really powerful for me. And I
Right.
felt like it was expanding me on the other side of my personality. And so I really went down that path.
Right.
And so I had like 2 lives, and I kept them both separate. I never mentioned to my workplace or my family. Of course, they found out, but I never mentioned I was doing energy work, because this was really actually in the 80s when nobody was talking about it. And now it's like a
Now a lot
household
of people
word,
are, yeah.
right? So I went all over the world. I was studying with very uh, amazing people, and I had really wonderful experiences, and that's kind of where my passion went.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but I never thought that I had to really stay in my body to have these experiences. I thought, oh, whatever. I could be, I don't need to be in tune with my feelings or in tune with the rest of my
Right.
life. So I just continued on along this path until I was like, and it was just recently, seriously, I just started really writing about all of my feelings and all my sensations. And I started working with other people and helping them. And I realized that it wasn't about food. Nothing was ever about food. It was about the feeling in the body that we weren't ever receiving the real nourishment that we needed in our lives.
Sure.
There was something that was always calling for more, or
Right.
yeah.
Right. Right. What role does self-talk play in our nourishment, and how can we reframe negative narratives that we tell ourselves every day?
Right. Okay. So the narrative that's going on in the back of the head is almost everything, because
Sure.
it's like a noise that's taking away your feelings, and it's really creating more feelings that aren't necessarily real or true.
Sure.
We're telling ourselves things that we think are happening, but maybe they're not even really happening. So we have a voice that's telling us stories.
Right.
Actually, the other day, I just realized that when sometimes I look at, I would look at a situation and I would be judging it. So I would have like a story, like a narrative going on just by looking at a situation or listening to someone. And I noticed, which is a really big deal to start to notice these things, that all of that was creating different sensations in my body. And it wasn't affecting the other person. I could be judging the other person or the other situation. It was affecting me. With myself, I said, how can I look at this situation? I mean, I'm looking at a little part of it, like this little part of it, and I have a story around it. But if it's a bigger picture, because right now, when I look at things, I say, okay, there's another way to look at that's part of the narrative that I give myself, because I'm trying to just expand my narrative to the point where maybe I don't even have one. Right. So if I'm looking at that picture and I just look at it and just appreciate it, and it can allow other things to come in that are maybe more positive or more expressive or more gentle, because that voice that we are always listening to is everything. So what I thought I would do is also create a path, a journey for people. And the journey wasn't going to be, okay, I have to lose weight, or, oh my God, I have to eat this, or it was going to be the path of nourishment. It even has a vibration to it. And so no matter where you are with your food journey or your connective journey with other people or your journey with yourself, you're always in the proper place. You're always in the best place that you could possibly be in. And because if you use the word nourishment, what ends up happening is you're like, okay, you know what? I'm good. I'm in the process of being nourished. You're always in the process and you're always in a path. And that allows us to expand ourselves as opposed to, I like to say, collapsing within ourselves, because then once we use those negative words, we judge ourselves. And if we start to judge ourselves, then where are we? We're just going to go down a rabbit hole or a spiral.
Right.
And when we go down that spiral, it's not pretty a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's almost like it takes us down.
Right. Absolutely. What you created, what I find really cool about all of this is that you have created a lot of different resources for people to kind of tap into this mindset, which I think is really cool. One of which is the Nourish app.
Yes.
Which is fascinating. What makes it different from other wellness or mindfulness apps that are out there? Because there's a lot. There's tons out there. Why should people download the Nourish app?
Because first of all, it brings you to very specific points in life or in our journey where we created beliefs that we run our lives by. Within my app, I like to cover 3 things. It's a guided activation or a meditation, and they're like 35 minutes long. It brings you to the point where you actually are feeling yourself at the point in your childhood or in another part of your life or in another, just an event that you hold in your head or your mind. And it allows you to look at it differently. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to have your feelings and sensations that you might not have had as a child or even as another age youngster that you might be. It allows you to have a different experience of the same situation that we probably have cemented in our mind somehow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it allows you to explore your inner world like in a more gentle way and from the inside out, because shifting these outworn behaviors, which is really what we're trying to do, is easier to do from the inside out, because the shift comes from your version of it, like a different version of it or a different way to look at it. And it allows you to feel really nourished inside because you're now looking at something totally different. And so I have like one of the activations that I have is called Sabotaging Self. And it allows us to really look at ourselves when we get to explore how we're taking ourselves out in our lives and knocking ourselves down and turning our power off, really is what we're doing.
Right.
And we're really wiping ourselves out somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know why we do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah,
by experiencing a time in our life that was different, that created this whole sense of sabotage, that we decided that was our strategy that we were going to do, that we could really bring these parts to consciousness. And what happens is we start to speak differently to ourselves. We start to look at different words that we create for ourselves. And it comes naturally because we're really shifting ourselves from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that because you offer that. You offer other tools as well, like things like the Nourish Journal as well, which is a free tool that people can get. And what I love, you mentioned a thing, I believe it's called activating your own power, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that, Isabel? How do we tap into our own ability to heal and actualize our potential?
By really looking at where a lot of our beliefs came from.
Sure.
By really looking at and feeling the shift from within. Mm-hmm. And it comes naturally. We begin to speak to ourselves in a whole different way. We begin to feel different. We begin to really love ourselves more and respect ourselves more. And we learn that the triggers that are in our life bring us to a certain level of consciousness. If we look at it like that, like maybe we're triggered and we get to look at ourselves.
Right.
And say, hold on, because that's not really them, the other person, it's really me. Because all the other person's doing is, other person said, let's just say they said hello and you didn't like it. And you were triggered by it. Some people are. And you're like, why she said hello to me? I mean, people can say that. And what is it about that? I mean, they must remind you of somebody, remind you of something. And we can go off on a whole storyline. But we begin to bring all that stuff down to a lighter simplicity for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? And we get to notice the trigger point. And I would think that if somebody's listening to you already, that they are already conscious of themselves and conscious of their behavior. And I think that this app, which is called Nourish, is just a way to take different parts of ourselves or parts of our life and look at how that played out in our life. And even if someone's listening to it, which I recommend 2 times a week, even if they play it in the background, something happens because part of the process is an inner guardian comes into the activation and allows you to feel what you feel, sense what you sense, and know what you know. And it resolves you. It finds out what it is that you really need. And by knowing what your real need is, it could be a need for acknowledgement. It could be a need for, a hug. You allow yourself to receive that at that point. And that's why this app it's different than others, because becomes full circle.
Right. And I'm going to include a link for that in the description of this podcast. I'm going to include a link for all of the resources that you provide. So that way people can just click on it and go download it, because I think something like this is really cool. And so like when you came across my email, I was like, absolutely. Yeah. I want to pick your brain about this, because I think this is fascinating. And so I'm going to include the link to all of this in the description of this podcast. And a lot of the people that listen to this podcast and follow me on social media, a lot of them are, my audience is about 90% people that I identify as female, a lot of women, right? A lot of them between the ages, I would say between like 30 and 55. That's like my core audience right there. If any of them that are listening right now could take away one lesson from this conversation, from what you have to offer, if there's one thing that you want them to just know going into the next day, what would that thing be?
Remember that everything that's happening in life is happening for you, whether it's something you look at, something you get to switch directions over. And if we look at it like that, then the triggers that we get from different situations are going to be like a glorious gift. And if we look at our life as a glorious gift and a point of nourishment, or everything's nourishing to us, it's like a warming of the heart. It's a healing of the soul. It's just, you're on a path. If you were listening to this, you're already getting the energetics of it. You're on a path. You're well on your way, and you're doing better than like 80% of people that aren't doing anything.
Yeah. That's very true. And I'm always so proud of the people that, like, I'm very fortunate to hear a lot of stories, and a lot of people will reach out and tell me their stories. And I know that there's going to be people that are listening and watching this right now being like, oh, I need to learn more about Isabel Chiara, because you're speaking our language over here. And I really do appreciate it. And I mean, if you don't mind, I'd love to have you like back on for like an even more like,
that's good, because my book Nourish is coming out in a couple months.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Oh, yeah. So let's get back together. Yeah, absolutely. Let's get back together.
I also have an offer that I'm offering a free 1 month to all of your clients.
Look at that. At that. Do you hear that? That's a free gift for all of you right now. I'm going to include, I think your assistant sent me over that information, I believe. Yes. So yeah, so I'm going to include that. Thank you for reminding me. I'm going to include that in the description of this. And can you tell people what they get out of that?
Yeah, they get to listen to, there's all these activations that you could pick one you want, whatever resonates with you, and just start listening as much as you can, because you get it free for a month. And I would love for them to email back and tell us what kind of experiences they had, and if it made a profound change in their life, because I'm hearing that from a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, I'm going to include all of that information in the description of this.
Right.
That's a free gift for all of you right now. So make sure you take advantage of that, because my audience knows I like to hook them up. So like, this is another hookup for y'all. And make sure you take advantage of that. And I would love to have you back on, because I have way more questions that I want to like dive into, especially with this book that you have coming out and all of that. So, Isabel, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and for recording with me. And I know that there's going to be people listening and watching right now that's going to be like, oh yeah, I like her. I like her energy. I like her vibe. I want to go check her out.
My website also, where they could pick up all of the other stuff. Yeah. So it's Isabel, Isabel Chiara, CHIARA.com, and everything's on the website.
Perfect. Yep, I'm going to include that in there as well. Friends, we're making it easy for you. All you have to do is click. And it's all right there. I want to thank my guest, Isabel Chiara. To everybody that's watching and listening right now, as always, thank you. Much love, good vibes, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on this week's episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you found a little bit of comfort in today's episode, and I hope that you're walking away with a little bit of encouragement, and I hope that you laughed a little bit along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a review. Let me know what you thought of the episode. I really want to hear your voice. I want to hear your story. I want to hear all about your journey. Let's keep the conversation going. Make sure you follow me on all of your favorite social media platforms. Follow me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, at The Vibe with Kai, for more tips, more laughs, and more real talk. Remember, my friends, you are not alone on this journey. We are in this together. And until next time, stay kind to yourself, embrace the journey, and keep vibing. I'll catch you next time. Much love. Good vibes.